layering is really important in the mountains. You're going to be high activity, maybe walking into a hut. Then there's going to be periods of your climb or your mountaineering where it's going to be lower activity. And then as the day progresses, it might get cold later in the day. So it's good to have lots of different types of layers that you can add and take off to make sure you don't sweat or overheat during the day. My name's Adrian Nelhams. I'm an IFMJ mountain guide, Arc'teryx ambassador, and we're here at the Arc'teryx Academy in the Great Langdale. It's easy to overheat when we're walking into a route or a climb or something like that. So we can take off those layers very simply just by pulling sleeves up and undoing zips. So having those sort of features on a jacket, play an important part for keeping us cool, walking into a route. Unzip things, pull up sleeves, take layers off when you're walking in. And the other important thing, as I tell clients all the time, is pace yourself. Pace yourself for the day, but pace yourself walking in somewhere as well, So another way that you don't overheat, because a lot of people rush in and speed into a climb or a route where actually a slightly slower pace will keep your speed down, you'll overheat less, and maybe you'll have more time to stop, take layers off, and be aware of those sorts of things. And if they're lightweight, you're more likely to carry them, you're more likely to change it up a little bit. Now, the fabrics used, the weight of these jackets is so light, they're easily carryable, they pack up really small, they're really packable. And it's a real treat now to go climb a mountaineering where you've got these different layers and you can layer up and you can kind of operate, at an ideal temperature for most of the time if you put that time aside. If the weather's bad and you do need to change layers, you just got to kind of get into it and do it as quickly as you can. Try and find a sheltered spot behind a rock, behind a wall, maybe tuck yourself in at the base of the crag. But whatever you do, do it really quickly. And if you've got your kit at the bottom of the bag, it's well stowed and it's well organized in your rucksack, then you can pull this stuff out pretty quickly. An example of that is if you've got some waterproof leggings, make sure those leggings have full length zips. So you don't need to take boots off and you can get them on with boots on, just unzip the zip, get into them. And it's about speed and efficiently. That's going to keep you warm, dry and safe, especially if you're on a big mountain high up. You need those leggings on. You haven't got the luxury of taking off crampons and boots and things like that. You just want to unzip the full length zip, get them on. So if you are buying kit, think about the functionality of it. How warm is it? How lightweight is it? Does it pack up well? Does it have the features for me, for what I want out of it? And where am I going to use it? Really give thought to those features, the weight of a jacket and how I can layer those jackets, with each other to give me that warmth or that insulation and those features that I need, I guess. So if you're looking at carrying gloves, in the winter I do a lot of icefall climbing, so I might carry like 4 sets of gloves on any one ice climbing day. And the reason for that is that when I'm walking in, I want a nice warm glove. I'll have ski poles in my hands, probably moving over snow or icy terrain to get to an icefall. But once I get there, my hands are probably pretty sweaty. They're a bit damp on the inside. So again, we know that my hands are just going to get cold. So then I'll put on more technical gloves, maybe ones with fingers, so I've got good dexterity while I'm getting my harness on and just before I go ice climbing. And I might have a second pair of dexterous gloves that I'll have down that jacket and maybe just underneath my proton there, keeping dry and warm. So for the first pitch, what I'll do is maybe climb in those technical gloves, but when I get to the belay, the anchor, I might delve into that second or third pair that I put on because those gloves now might be wet. So it's about that personal admin around looking after yourself, carrying enough gloves, keeping yourself warm and changing it up depending on the conditions. So think about gloves not just as a pair to walk in and climb in and a spare pair. Think about a pair to walk in and walk out in, but also maybe a couple of pairs there also that you can climb in to keep your hands warm. I think the biggest mistakes that people make when they're layering is that they don't take the time to take jackets off or put jackets on, and it's that kind of personal admin, if you like, and they'll walk up to a base of a route or a hut, and rather than unzipping your pit zips or taking the jacket off even, they'll reluctantly stop and they'll continue up and they'll sweat, they'll get too hot. That means they're going to dehydrate a little bit, and then also as soon as you get wet underneath, that base layer's wet, then you're going to get cold as well. So I guess a top tip tip from me as a guide is if you're walking into a hut or a route in the winter or in the summertime, is have a spare base layer in your rucksack. So when you get there, if you can just change that base layer and then put all those other layers on top, you're going to feel warm, you're going to feel really comfortable. And from my experience, it feels like a very different day all of a sudden. Rather than standing around putting other layers on top, your base is still wet and you're still going to be cold. So take a spare base layer and put that on at the base of the route or the base of the crag or base of the mountain, and you're going to feel very different when you sort of start off. Packing for my day in the mountains. What I'll start with is packing for the worst case scenario, worst sort of weather really, and I'll pack an Alpha jacket. And the reason I pack my Alpha, it's Gore-Tex Pro, super waterproof, really abrasion resistant in the shoulders. It's got a good hood here that you fit a helmet on when you're climbing, and it's got this sort of hadron lower section which makes it really breathable but especially lightweight. And I'll put that in the bottom of my rucksack, and that's there for when the weather gets really bad. And then as well as that, I'll put in my rucksack maybe the Proton. And the Proton is an insulated jacket that I could wear as a standalone jacket if it gets cold, or I can layer it up with my Alpha if the weather's really bad and I need the extra warmth. So I've got my Proton here. It's an insulated jacket. It packs up really small. It's nice and lightweight, which is important for both the Alpha and the Proton, because for much of the day I might be carrying those items. So they're lightweight, they're packable, but as layering pieces, they're warm and they work really well together as two jackets. And underneath the Proton, I'll wear something like the Delta Hybrid hoodie, something like that. And that's like a lightweight, mid-weight layer that I can wear walking into a route, walking into a hut, something like that. And so walking in, if I stop, I need some warmth, I can wear the Proton, or if the weather's just bad, it's windy, it's wet, I can just get out my Alpha and wear that. So all three sort of jackets and tops really complement each other when I'm thinking about layering up for a mountain day, whether it's an alpine day or whether it's one here in the Lake District.